We call her the goddess of love, yet she was trapped in a loveless marriage. We say she controlled desire, yet she was brought to her knees by a mortal. I'm Nikos, speaking to you from Greece, and today we uncover the tragic love life of the most beautiful goddess of them all. Aphrodite was born of sea foam. The beauty of the ocean gave rise to the most magnificent deity in all of Greek mythology. As she emerged, she wandered the world in divine splendor, until her steps led her to Olympus, where the new order of gods had just claimed their thrones. The Olympians were amazed by her grace and beauty and welcomed her among them as one of their own. As goddess of love, beauty and desire, her presence brought both brilliance and danger to the heavens. Many gods were smitten, each longing to claim her heart. But before desire could turn to rivalry, Zeus intervened. To prevent strife among the Olympians, he gave the most desired goddess a husband. The one he chose was Hephaestus. Hephaestus was the master of the forge. He had the ability to craft celestial weapons and tools with abilities unimaginable even by the king of the gods. He loved Aphrodite deeply, adorning her with magnificent jewelry of his own making, gifts that only heightened her already incomparable beauty. But Hephaestus often vanished into the depths of his forge beneath Mount Etna, consumed by his work for days on end. Silence grew around the goddess of love. Nights passed, cold and quiet, and loneliness began to seep into her halls. And then, one night, someone came to fill the silence. Ares, the god of war, and Hephaestus' own brother, took advantage of the smith's absence. Cloaked in shadow, he crept into Aphrodite's marriage chamber, for her beauty was too powerful to resist. Their union was inevitable. Ares and Aphrodite began an affair that would soon shake Olympus itself. The god of war was mesmerized by the goddess of love, and their passion burned fiercely. But to keep their meeting secret, Ares knew he had to evade even the gaze of Helios, the all-seeing sun god. To guard their secret, he assigned Alectryon, his loyal companion, to stand watch outside the door and alert them before dawn's first lights. Night after night, the lovers met in secret, entwined in affection, desire, and danger. But nothing stays hidden for long on Olympus. One fateful night, Alectryon fell into a deep sleep, and morning came without warning. The sun rose, and Helios indeed saw everything. It took only moments for the sun god to fly down to Hephaestus, who was once again consumed by the roaring fires of his forge. Helios revealed the truth of Aphrodite's betrayal with Ares, and the divine smith was struck with anguish. But Hephaestus was not like his brother. He would not answer treachery with violence. Instead, he turned to the art he knew best. In a brilliant act of revenge, Hephaestus crafted a net of impossibly fine metal, woven so delicately that it was invincible to the naked eye. With divine precision, he set this simmering snare over the lover's bed, the perfect trap for those who had wronged him. The very next night, Ares returned once more to lie with a magnificent Aphrodite. The passionate lovers embraced, unaware that vengeance awaited them. But just as their bodies entwined, the invincible net sprang to life, its divine chains tightening around them, binding them naked and immobile on the bed. Aphrodite cried out in panic as Hephaestus entered, his face aflame with wrath. Yet the master of the forge was not finished. With cold fury, he summoned every god of Olympus to witness the betrayal, and to expose the shame of his unfaithful wife and treacherous brother for all eternity. The goddesses, out of modesty, remained absent, but every male god came. The room was filled with uncontrollable laughter and mockery. Apollo laughed without restraint, and Hermes mocked Hephaestus, joking he would happily take Ares' place. Only Poseidon spoke for mercy, urging Hephaestus to release the ensnared lovers. But the damage had already been done. Hephaestus freed them and departed in silence, wounded, swearing never to speak to Aphrodite again, for her betrayal had burned deeper than the flames of any forge. Ares too was disgraced, and the scorn of the gods weighed heavily on him. In his fury he blamed Alextreion, his follower who had failed to keep watch. In punishment Ares transformed him into a mindless rooster, cursed to cry before every sunrise for all eternity, forever announcing the dawn he once missed. As for Aphrodite, shamed and humiliated, she fled to her sacred sanctuary in Paphos on the island of Cyprus. There the three Harites bathed her in sacred waters and anointed her with divine oils, finally restoring her radiance and dignity. Despite the public scandal, the affair between Ares and Aphrodite endured. From their union came children who forever linked love and war. Phobos and Deimos, the fear and dread who rode into battle with their father, and Harmonia, living proof that even strife occasionally produces peace. According to some accounts, even Eros and Anteros, the gods of desire and requited love, arose from them. So potent was this union that some Greeks, like the Spartans, even worshipped Aphrodite in a more fearsome form, as Aphrodite Aria, or Aphrodite the warlike, a goddess who bore the traits of her lover. For love and conflict are more often twins, rather than opposites. Ages passed. As the goddess of love, Aphrodite often drew the anger of the gods, and especially Zeus. She had a dangerous habit of making even the mightiest of them fall hopelessly in love with mortals. The king of the gods, a frequent and easy target of her mischief, eventually lost his patience. To punish her, to make her feel the same humiliating desire she so often inflicted on others, Zeus struck Aphrodite with overwhelming desire for a mortal. A prince of the great city of Troy, renowned for his beauty and strength. His name was Anchises. The goddess, overwhelmed by passion, transformed herself into a beautiful mortal maiden before meeting the prince, who at the time was tending his cattle on the slopes of Mount Ida. She adorned herself in dazzling garments crafted by the Harites, appearing as a princess of noble birth, her beauty shining brighter than any mortal's. When she reached Anchises' hut, the prince was immediately struck by her stunning presence. Awestruck, he asked if she were a goddess. But the ever-cunning Aphrodite answered with a carefully woven lie. She claimed to be a mortal princess from Phrygia, brought to Mount Ida by Hermes, the messenger god, who had declared that she was fated to marry Anchises and bear him children destined to change the world. Playing the part perfectly, she even pleaded with him to take her to his parents so they could arrange a proper marriage. Anchises was fully convinced by the maiden's divine tale, believing their union to be the will of the gods. Overcome by desire and the overwhelming beauty before him, he took her to bed, and together they shared a night of intense passion. When Anchises drifted into sleep, Aphrodite shed her mortal disguise and revealed her full divine splendor. But the prince awoke. When he beheld the radiant goddess standing before him, he was struck with terror. For what mortal could touch, much less lie with, a goddess and hope to escape divine wrath? Sensing his terror, Aphrodite gently calmed him. There would be no punishment from Olympus. Instead, she delivered a prophecy. She would bear him a son named Aeneas, who would grow up to become a great hero, honored among the Trojans and destined for glory. When the child turned 5, she would bring him to Troy, where his destiny would begin to unfold. But the goddess left Anchises with a solemn warning. He must never reveal her identity. The boy was to be introduced as the son of a nymph. If the prince dared to boast of having lain with the goddess, he would provoke the wrath of Zeus himself, and his punishment would be severe. Yet ignorance and pride are common failings among mortal men. Years passed, and Anchises could no longer bear the weight of his secret. After all, he had fathered a son with the most beautiful goddess of them all. One night, having drunk deeply, Anchises began to boast in Troy of his divine affair with Aphrodite, claiming her as the mother of his son. But the boast did not go unheard. Zeus, the most fearsome of all gods, was enraged by the mortal's arrogance. To punish him for his hubris, the king of the gods hurled a lightning bolt down upon Anchises, striking and crippling him for life. His son Aeneas grew up as foretold, and his strength and beauty reflected his divine origin. He rose to become one of the greatest heroes of Troy, distinguished in the Trojan War for his valor. And when the city at last fell to the Greeks, it was Aeneas who led the surviving Trojans on a long and perilous journey, a journey that would end in the founding of a new legacy, the birth of Rome, and with it, the rise of an empire that would echo the glory of the gods. And yet, Aphrodite had never truly loved. The goddess of love had never known real affection herself, never deeply cared for another, though this would soon change with the story of a young mortal maiden named Mera. Mera was the daughter of Cinyras, a renowned hero and king of Cyprus. Her beauty was unmatched, drawing countless suitors from across the land, yet she rejected them all. So breathtaking was she that her own mother, glowing with pride, dared to boast that her daughter surpassed in beauty even Aphrodite herself. But such hubris could not go unpunished, and so the proud goddess devised a cruel and twisted punishment. She cursed Mera with an overwhelming, uncontrollable desire for her own father. Driven by the curse, Mera committed the unspeakable sin. In shadows, she deceived her father to share his bed. And when King Cinyras finally lit a lamp and discovered his daughter's treachery, he drew his sword ready to strike her, blinded by rage. Mera fled into the wilderness, begging the gods to remove her from both life and death, so her presence would disturb neither the living nor the dead. Taking pity on the broken girl, the gods finally transformed her into the Myrrh tree to relieve her. But even in transformation, her sorrow endured. The bitter, fragrant sap that weeps from the Myrrh tree is said to be her eternal tears, a silent mourning for her terrible sin. And 9 months later, the tree entered its final moment of agony, for the girl had conceived a child by her father. And so its trunk split open, and from within emerged a beautiful baby boy. He was so breathtaking that his very existence seemed to atone in part for the horror of his conception. Aphrodite, who had set into motion the events that led to his birth, looked upon the newborn and was instantly captivated. His beauty was unlike anything she had ever seen. Growing obsessed with the infant, she resolved to keep him hidden from the eyes of gods and mortals alike. And so she placed him in a wooden chest and descended into the depths of the underworld. There, before Persephone, the queen of the dead, Aphrodite entrusted the chest to her care, asking her to guard it closely and reveal its contents to no one. Persephone was intrigued by Aphrodite's secrecy. Upon opening the chest and seeing the infant inside, she too was instantly enchanted. The child's beauty was beyond mortal or divine comparison. She named him Adonis and raised the boy herself, watching over him with care as he grew. And grow he did. Adonis matured into a youth of breathtaking, unparalleled beauty. So radiant he was that even the dead seemed to stare in his presence. When Aphrodite returned to the underworld to reclaim him, Persephone, now deeply in love with the boy she had raised, refused to let him go. Thus, the two goddesses became locked in a bitter struggle over the young mortal, each unwilling to surrender him to the other. Their quarrel grew so intense that they took their dispute to Zeus, the king of the gods himself. The great god, faced with the fury of both goddesses, feared the consequences such divine rivalry might bring upon the cosmos, and so he was forced to intervene. He decreed a compromise. Adonis' time would be divided into 3 equal parts. 1/3 would be spent with Persephone in the underworld, 1/3 with Aphrodite in the world above, and the final third would belong to Adonis himself to choose as he wished. The young mortal, enchanted by Aphrodite's charm and beauty, gave his own share to her, choosing to remain by her side, leaving only the cold and barren months of winter to the Queen of the Dead. Years passed, and Aphrodite and Adonis lived in true bliss during the time they shared. Aphrodite's love for the beautiful young man was all-consuming. Unlike her fleeting affairs, this was a love that ran deep, protective, caring, and jealous. She loved him so fiercely that she began to neglect her divine duties on Mount Olympus, choosing instead to wander the forests at his side, disguised as a simple huntress just to be near him. Adonis, who had grown to love the thrill of the hunt, was brave, but hunting was dangerous. And to Aphrodite, he had come to represent everything bright and beautiful in the world. Worried for his safety, she warned him again and again. "Hunt only timid creatures," she pleaded. "Avoid lions, bears, and boars, the fierce beasts whose strength no mortal can match. Your life is fragile, and far too precious for me to lose." But Adonis, proud and bold, refused to listen. One day, while Aphrodite was away, he ventured into the forest alone. As he hunted, his hounds flashed out a massive wild boar. Excited by the challenge, Adonis eagerly gave chase and prepared for battle. But he could not know the truth. The beast was no ordinary animal. It was Ares, the god of war himself, consumed by jealousy over Aphrodite's love for him. Taking the form of the monstrous boar, Ares had come to destroy his rival. Though brave and skilled, Adonis stood no chance. The beast charged. In an instant, it drove its talons deep into him, tearing through flesh with a savage blow. The young hunter fell, his blood staining the earth beneath him. From high in the heavens, Aphrodite heard the distant, dying cries of her beloved Adonis. In her swan-drawn chariot, she raced through the sky, desperate to reach him. As she descended into the forest, she ran to his side, and she pricked her foot on a white rose, painting it red with her divine blood. Thus, the first red rose was born, a symbol of passionate and tragic love for all time. At last she found him, bleeding and broken upon the ground. The goddess collapsed beside him, weeping without end, tearing her hair and beating her chest as she cradled his body in her arms. After his final breath, in her sorrow, Aphrodite poured nectar over his spilled blood, and from its drops sprang a delicate flower, the anemone. Beautiful, yet fragile, it would forever be a symbol of Adonis. For it too was lovely for this world, and was doomed to perish with the first whisper of wind. Adonis' death was mourned across the ancient world, and his story became one of the most cherished and sorrowful myths of the Greeks. Each year, women gathered to honor him during the Adonia, a solemn festival devoted to love and loss, life and death, fertility, and the very fragility of existence. In remembering Adonis, they remembered the fleeting beauty of all mortal things. After Adonis, Aphrodite never again risked the pain of loving a mortal. The wound left by his death ran too deep. From time to time she found fleeting comfort in the arms of Ares and shared passing unions with other Olympians as well. With Poseidon she bore Rhode, the graceful patroness of roses and the radiant island of Rhodes. With Hermes she gave birth to Hermaphroditos, a child of striking beauty who embodied both male and female united in one divine form. And with Dionysus she had Priapus, a fertility god cursed with a grotesque form even before birth, as an act of vengeance by Hera, who despised Aphrodite's beauty. But for Aphrodite the greatest tragedy remained. Never again did she know true love. All she had left were fleeting memories and the delicate, sorrowful touch of an anemone. If you made it this far, I just want to say thank you. It means the world to me to share with you the myths and stories of my homeland. If there is one thing to take from today's tale, let it be this. Even the goddess of love could not escape heartbreak, yet she sure found meaning to it. It is our fragile, mortal loves, the ones we risk and grieve for, that makes our lives truly worth living. And if you enjoyed this video, please stay tuned for the next episode of the Greek mythology. Until next time, take care.